Today, we decided to explore a different perspective, one that doesn't ask, how do I get rid of anxiety? But instead asks, what is my anxiety trying to tell me? And to guide us through this conversation, we are joined by Elizabeth Shahid, the family therapist who helps individuals and families build healthier relationships, not just with each other, but with their own emotions. Welcome back to another episode of Chatting with Slava the Jordanian. I'm your host, STJ. And I just want to start with thanking Elizabeth for coming back. I know how busy you are, and I'm so excited about this episode because, as you know, I am a Palestinian Jordanian American, and you are also Lebanese Palestinian American. Mm-hmm. And we have mentioned in the past how our culture does not really recognize anxiety or any complex emotions. So I am very excited for this episode because I want to learn as much as I can, and hopefully me, myself, come out of this episode knowing how to build a relationship with anxiety, because I avoided it all my life, and I'm, 57 next month, which is crazy. So thank you for coming back.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about this too.
All right, so let's start diving into it. In your opinion, I just want to understand why families like mine struggle to accept anxiety, and how can we start having a healthier conversation at home when one of our family members, especially the young ones, going through anxiety, and how to pick up on the signs or the alarming signs.
Okay, so this is a great question, but I have questions for you to ask about this. So I want to know, what is it in your experience, or maybe you've seen a pattern in other family members or other families. What, in your experience, what is it how do you think that people view anxiety? Like, why is it such a problem, or like something that the families don't want to talk about?
So let me start with saying that the word anxiety, which is in Arabic, I don't think it exists until recently. So there's a word called al-qalaq or tawattur. Tawattur meaning somebody that's not really worried and having that racing thoughts that they can't focus. Tawattur meaning imbalance, right? But it refers to emotional imbalance. Al-qalaq meaning that worrying. So when you worry a lot, so لما الواحد بيقلق بيتوتر, right? If you worry so much, you cannot focus on the task at hand, then you become dysregulated and you're not really balanced. But there is no word in Arabic that I know of that really translate to the right definition of anxiety. So that's number one. It does not exist in our language. So even if you are trying to express yourself, or you're trying to reach to somebody to explain to them what's going on physiologically, chemically, psychologically, there is no word in Arabic that we can use to describe what we're going through. And in a scientific term or psychological term, that's number one. Number two, psychology and philosophy back in the day when I was growing up in Saudi Arabia was illegal to be taught in schools and universities. And there's no such thing as specializing or getting a degree in psychology in Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure if that changed, but all the Levantine, all the Arab countries, or even all around the Islamic world, I think it is recognized. But that happens to be the setup where I grew up. Number three, it's all about the tribal connection. You know, if you have your solid tribal connection and you have a very strong family relationship, you keep it within the family. And I think the Western world used to conduct itself that way in the past, that don't hang your dirty laundry in public. Don't talk about this. Keep it within the household. Don't share what happened at home with a stranger, because those are strangers that might judge you, that might criticize you. You are representing the family name in a very bad light. So because of that, we could not express ourselves outside the home or beyond the scope of the tribe or the family. And also spirituality, it really plays upon how we express ourselves in, which is praying, basically. So when I used to go ask my mom, I'm so nervous about the exam, and I will panic. I was an A student, but there was a lot of pressure on me too, as an Arab female girl finishing high school, going to college. And my mom used to say, go pray, which is meditation. I get it, but it's more than that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I expected, or I wanted to understand, why am I feeling this way? Why am I being triggered? What are the triggered? Why am I being dysregulated? And even if I say yes and go pray and try to meditate in this like really high anxiety level, it's really hard to calm you down. You need to calm down first before you silence everything and can get in touch with the divine or meditate or quiet things down. So I think those three, tribal connection, really, really tight family bond, keep it in the family, keep it within the family, spirituality, and just the ignorance of what anxiety is, linguistically even. If you don't have a word that you can describe those emotions, how are you going to communicate that to the person in front of you? Or let's take it further than that. How can you even ask for help if you cannot actually express yourself? And I hope that answered the question.
Oh, this gave me a lot, to think about and to talk about for sure, because, something interesting and some of the things that I've read about was that in Middle Eastern cultures, people will describe mental health, maybe the way that the Western culture describes mental health is actually many times in the Middle East described in physical sensations, like heaviness on your heart or on your chest, or like, talking about your breathing or like a stomach ache. Whereas, because there maybe are no words, or maybe the culture has not created a space where you can kind of like identify exactly what this is, and it's hard to identify it, it's hard to describe it. So I think that's interesting. And like what you said like the word in Arabic is like a worry imbalance.
Yeah. So tawattur, it's the imbalance, and qalaq, the worrying. So you are way too worried that you are imbalancing yourself. And I just want to go back to the physical symptoms too. The reason why we actually describe how we're feeling with physical symptoms, because being physically ill will grab people's attention, because that's important. Your body is your temple. You take care of it. God created it.
It'll be taken seriously.
Exactly. So people will take it more seriously if you said, "Oh, my chest hurts," or I'm feeling nauseous, or I'm feeling like I'm going to get sick, or like I can't breathe. That people will actually help you, because, oh my God, there's a physical symptoms that we can see that somebody is in distress. We got to get them help.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, it makes it easier to talk about these things. And then also you brought up, keeping things within the family, and how like reputation is important, judgment, or like avoiding judgment is important. And I think that this is just a way that a culture is set up. It's not inherently bad or wrong to do. It's just set up in this way and then the coping skills that they provide is like spirituality, or a doctor, you can address the stomach ache, or, kind of even going out in nature. Whereas like here in our society here, it's like nature, we want to avoid it. We want to be inside with air conditioning. And so it's just kind of set up in a different sort of way, not inherently wrong though. And so I want to share with you though, what, in my perspective, what anxiety is, because anxiety is a very natural thing. Like you said in the very beginning, anxiety is a survival skill. Way long time ago, back in the day when our ancestors were surviving off the land, buildings didn't exist, electricity didn't exist. We were living off the land. If there was a threat that came around, maybe we're walking around, we're gathering food, or picking mint, we're picking whatever it is we're picking, and all of a sudden we see in the corner of our eye a bush that's starting to shake. And immediately, our body releases chemicals that widen our pupils. So that way we can receive all the light we can, so we can pay attention and look around and view our surroundings. Our breathing starts to quicken so we can take in as much oxygen as possible. Our heart starts racing as fast as it can to bring that oxygen into our blood and to bring it throughout all of our muscles. And our muscles start to tense because it's getting prepared and ready for us to act. And so all of these things are happening. And if we were to pay attention to those things, it would be very uncomfortable. But in that moment, a long time ago, we would use those things to help us pay attention. We'd look around, we'd decide, okay, where is the threat? Is it far enough away so that way we can use our muscles that are tensing and our quickening heart and our quickening breath to run away and get away from that lion, let's say? Or has the lion seen us and we have a weapon here that we're going to have to use with our tensed muscles and everything prepared to fight? Or has the lion not seen us and there's a huge tree or a cave that we can hide in? Okay, and so this is the response we have. I'm sure you've heard of it as the fight, flight, or freeze response. And so in this situation, anxiety is very natural. It's helping us to survive this moment. In today's society, we don't have a lion that's a threat, but other things can be like perceived as a threat. And when that happens, sometimes it's harder to see. You know, if it's a lion, we're all like, that lion is scary. Yes, I can agree. But when we're talking about relationships, when we're talking about being busy, our schedule, our money, or all these other things that everybody else has different opinions on and different experiences with, it can be very easy to judge ourselves and our experience with those things. And it's harder to kind of pinpoint those things when there's so many different things bringing that chemical release that's happening. And really, the chemical release is just, if we can look at it like it's a message that tells us that something is not sitting well with us, that something is, that we need to change something, we need to do something to change whatever it is that's making us uncomfortable, it can kind of change our perspective on that chemical release that's very uncomfortable.
I agree with you 100%. I think you put it simply and beautifully, setting the stage up for this conversation. But I just want to answer that as let's say, an Arab mom back in Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, whatever. And my 12-year-old is constantly panicking from, like, I don't want to meet my family. I don't want to go to a birthday party. I don't want people around me. I just want to be in my room. You know, you hearing that, right? So there is a chemical imbalance that the child is going through, but the judgment is, oh my God, I'm embarrassed, you know, that my child is acting this way, to the point that that child is rejecting being with their family, you know, rejecting going to the birthday party. What are the people going to say about me? Mm-hmm. So that's number one. Number two, or the different scenario approach. Oh, this child is so, you know, so imbalanced, so dysregulated. I'm ashamed taking that child to the birthday party because they're going to make a scene and they're going to be very fussy, and the whole family is going to ruin the whole family's occasion. It's all about serving the family. And what does that do? That child is going to receive that. And I've seen it, you know, verbal abuse in my family and extended family. I've seen physical abuse, and, you know, because that child just couldn't really express themselves. There's nothing wrong with them. We just need to step back, step back, calm down, and figure out what are the triggering events that caused. Is it emotional, or is it, you know, psychological? Is it even, you know, that child is just born with high cortisol levels, you know, the adrenal glands are fatigued, whatever, and it's causing that fight and flight constantly with that child. But unfortunately, sometime in my generation, back home, that would be the case. Either it's like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed you're staying home, or, oh my God, how could you and how dare you not be part of the family, and it's all about you being so selfish because you are, you know, serving or catering to these emotions. You have a duty to do, to attend that birthday party and make me proud. You know what I'm saying? So that puts a lot of pressure on us. And then what we do, we poo-poo our emotions. We just, you know, just shove it under the carpet. We'll deal with it later. But before you know it, that anxiety is just going to grow and grow and grow. And even if we were successful enough to suppress it enough, my anxiety surfaced in, postmenopause. I just could not control it, right? It's not like to a very low degree, but I just noticed it because I did not recognize what was going on. Then with professional help, I realized like, oh my God, I've been carrying this all my life, but because of the pressure of responsibility and duty and dedication and being busy trying to make a life for myself as an immigrant, I just, tucked it away somewhere. And now menopause or postmenopause, there's no room for that.
Forced you to look at it.
Exactly. Menopause alone is just a black hole of emotions. So what did it drag with it? It's everything that I have been tucking away and that just surfaced. And for me, it's like, oh my God, I'm a mature adult, a professional, a business owner. I can't be feeling this way. Yes, I am. Because I didn't deal with it back then, because the way we were programmed to just suppress it, turn it off, hide it, because it's an embarrassment. It's a sign of weakness. Yeah, you are weak enough because you cannot face your emotion. Those are just emotions. Physical symptoms, you get cared for. Right? But emotions, you are weak enough. Those are just emotion. How can you not control your own emotions? And that's the attitude we get. And that's how we shut down. And you end up with more complicated, conditions, more serious episodes. And, you go down the rabbit hole, basically.
How do you think it would be different for that in that situation with the mom and the daughter who's saying, I don't want to go to this family function? How do you think that conversation would have gone differently if the mom had this understanding of anxiety being a chemical release and a function in the body, and even natural as a signal to the child or even to the mom about that tells them? How do you think that conversation would have gone differently?
I think with a different environment, because remember, I'm not downplaying parents' role, right? But our parents were so busy surviving too. You know what I'm saying? Because the way they transfer the power, with that attitude that's how their parents raised them. That's how their grandparents raised. So it's a transfer power of that kind of, just cyclic approach or style of dealing with anxiety. So if that parent, my parent, for example, break the mold and say that, no, I did not like how my generation dealt with it, I'm going to start paying attention to triggering events. I'm going to start paying attention to my child pattern of behavior to trying to figure out, is it a learned behavior or is it a chemical imbalance? And then when that child gets triggered and dysregulated, then I'm going to sit down with that child and say, okay, let's break it down. Have a conversation. That's all I wanted. Honestly, I did never ask for a therapist or I need to go to hospital or I think I'm dying, that panic attack. I just want to have a conversation. Do not ignore me, right? Because ignoring is rejection. And nothing worse, I'm saying it right now, there's nothing worse for a Arab offspring to be rejected by their family members. Pay attention and just acknowledge that I'm having a hard time. That's all I'm saying. But even that we never got, because my parents will look at me as like, Slava, I got a million things to do. There are more important things than you right now. Right? The house, the kids, the family, the reputation, the party, and you need to get over yourself. Exactly. You need to get over yourself. You're not that important. And that's how it diminishes our value and our role in the community. Okay, I don't matter. Then I'm just going to move on. You're just moving on with the herd and hope for the best. And unfortunately, that doesn't work. It leaves you with a lot of scars.
Yeah, for sure. And I like how you were talking about that's how their parents dealt with it and their parents dealt with it. And I was thinking about that when you were first originally telling the story, and that even the mom in the scenario was experiencing anxiety about what people think and judgment. So much so that it was kind of like taught to the kid. It was a a lesson that they're learning to hide their feelings, to like say this is not so important, to minimize how they're feeling, and then just kind of like pretend, or until maybe one day later in the future they go, I can't avoid this anymore. This is something I need to pay attention to.
That's true 100%. But another message that they're giving you, that you are not better than our ancestors. What makes you better than our ancestors for you to require more attention or a different way of dealing it? It's all about honoring the family. It's all about honoring the ancestry. You're not better than my mother. You're not better than my grandmother, especially with a female. It's a lot of pressure on us. So with the male, maybe it's like they kind of baby them and kind of like protect them because it's the heir to the throne, so to speak. It's a line of succession. Yeah, but for a female,
can I ask you about that?
Yeah, sure.
When you say that, and I know this experience, I have this, but I want to ask you more details about it. So when they would say, you're not better than, how are they perceiving what you were doing as, or I don't know if this is you in this scenario, but how are they perceiving what this person is doing, as thinking they're better than the ancestors?
Because you are asking for a different way of dealing with the situation. Like I want better than you ignoring me. You were ignored by your parents. You were ignored by your grandparents. I need more attention than what you got. I am requesting a professional to take care of me. I am requesting time to be heard. I do matter. Because if my mom says, I did not matter enough for my parents to set aside a time from their farmers, right, in Jordan, from their farming, and they were out there in the dust and the heat and the sun, and the women are preparing the food, the women are harvesting, the men are herding on the horses all day long, and then it's time for them to rest and have time for themselves and feed and wash up and spend time with their family. There's no time for you. Because the whole family is working so hard in the fields to keep this family surviving. You're just one member of the family, that there is no time for you because everybody's working real hard. It's all about the collective. It's all about the greater good of the collective, greater good of the family. So you are saying that I need to stop everything that I'm doing because you're having a hard time. And you tell me that I cannot face the family, or I'm not in the mood to go to a birthday party because something happened in your personal life that triggered you. Get over yourself. That's the attitude. So for me to insist on, no, I want better than that. That's not good enough. The way that you were taught, and that's probably, they didn't know better. The way you were taught to take care of this situation is not good enough, and I want something better. That is an insult to my mom. That's an insult to my ancestors. That's an insult to my grandmother and her mother. You know what I'm saying? And on the other side of the coin, that she is actually facing a reality that my daughter is weak enough that she cannot handle herself. That she has no self-awareness, that this is not all about you. She doesn't have social awareness, that she has an obligation. She has to go to that birthday party. So my daughter is weak. That's another slap across the face, that I gave birth to a weak individual that's going to be carrying the name of that family. So it's a lot of pressure. And I hope this answered your question. Yeah.
What's that?
I hope that answered your question, I said.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, yeah, this is heavy messages that you would be receiving about not just like right now in this moment of like having to go to this family event, but also like carrying the weight of the past and the future. And I mean, that's a lot of pressure for sure. I want to make sure that this is not like something that's like generalized, because I do believe there are a lot of families in our culture that also kind of understand the slowing down and the giving, like honoring that feeling that maybe they didn't have words of anxiety, and they didn't have, things like pharmaceutical medicines that were as easily accessible, or, the understanding of the scientific experience that's happening in our bodies or in the medicine or in our brain. But they still understood that kind of slowing down and honoring a moment with a person is important. And that even like a simple, everybody sitting around in the field, chopping up a vegetable right there in the field, after sitting in the shade together with each other, could be healing for them, and allowing space for music and expressing how you feel through that music, and hearing someone else's crying and mourning is healing and is medicine. And at the same time, there are many families in our culture who do exactly what you're describing, which is, this is too much for me. I don't know how to handle this. And I don't have time for this because there's so many other stressors going on. I mean, that is very real pressure to experience. But it doesn't erase that this is a human experience that we all have. And
it brings me to the point that, and that's how. So when you're starting your life, relating to anxiety as something bad, you know what I'm saying? But also you pluck yourself from your home world and you're going into the new world. Are you kidding me? The whole journey is an anxious journey, Very, so can you imagine
not knowing what's there?
Exactly. You are diving into a huge field of unknown without the tribal connection, without the family support. Some of us don't even speak the language, and they come here hoping that they have some kind of a relative or a friend they are sponsored by that will teach them the language, show them the ropes. But can you imagine the anxiety? So if you are starting your journey with anxiety is bad, but again, for an immigrant going into the new world, anxiety needs to be used as a tool to protect yourself and survive. So you are diminishing the value of that tool, and you're sitting around, it's like, okay, I'm not sure what to do with this situation because I need to survive, because I sacrificed a lot coming to this country. I want my family to be proud. That's all you're thinking about. I want my family to be proud back home, and I want to show my family that I made the right decisions, that my life in the new world is better than the life I would have had in the old world. But diminishing the tool of anxiety or poo-pooing it, or it's like, no, I can't use that. Anxiety is something shameful. Like, how are you gonna survive? And I have no idea. I know so many families. I've been in this country 38 years. I know so many families that they're the second generation, or first generation American, second generation American, has such a high anxiety level, and the parents is like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, people, really, you need to go back in time and kind of retrace your steps, how you got here, because you taught us that anxiety is weakness. Do you know what I'm saying? Anxiety is, anxiety is not something that you should use to survive, that definition of anxiety is fight or flight. It's a survival mode. But going out to your point, even taking a pill, that's a huge no-no in my culture. You taking medication to deal with your emotions? How weak are you that you're becoming dependent on pharma or a prescription to take care of your emotions? That's a big no-no.
Yeah, for sure. I like that you brought this experience of Immigrant, because it's different. Because many people consider like the removing yourself from your home place and coming into a different, totally new culture is a trauma. I mean, there's so many unknowns. There's so many, everything is changing. Like you said, language, just like the mindset of people, everything has changed. And for many immigrants who come here hustling and working so hard to get to the place they imagine themselves to be here, they might consider, from what I've seen, they might consider that pausing to consider your inner experience, your emotions, or your soul sort of thing, they might consider that to be a privilege, to be able to pause, because if you're hustling and there's no time and you got to keep food on the table and you got to keep everybody under checks, and we got to make sure you're fitting in with your people and I'm fitting in with my people, and this is having this, but also at the same time there's all these messages saying you don't fit in, this is not going to work. There's a fear of all of this. Pausing to consider how you feel is a privilege, and it's not that this is like inherently wrong, but like we talked about, how that could kind of pass from one generation to the next generation. That experience can really be telling about what happened 2 generations ago, that's now affecting me today, and not knowing where it kind of came from can be kind of confusing, or even like judgmental. It can be very easy to judge yourself. And others.
It's also the comment that you get. Oh, let's see if you think you can do better, or let's see if you can do better. Like you think you know better than our ancestors. You're just a little young punk, 25, 23 years old, that you ran away from the pressures that they are dealing with in the home world.
That maybe they don't want to even.
Exactly. So when I used to go, for example, we used to go to Jordan to vacation, we used to play outside in the alleyway and stuff. In some of the Jordanian kids, the native Jordanian kids, they will throw rocks at us. And they say, go back to Saudi Arabia. You are traitors. You left this country chasing oil money. Those are these words I will never ever forget. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, we stayed here for better, for worse, for our country. We stayed here and we showed that we are more a nationalist than you guys are. But when the tough got going, you guys fled and ran away to a country like Saudi Arabia that's very rich, jobs are available, money is available, all bougie, it's stable, politically stable, and we are the one that survived, so we are more a loyalist than you are. So that stigma alone, when I heard that at age 11 or 12 years old, the guilt, number 1 is rejection. Number 2, you guilty. Number 3, the shame. So I went to my mom, was like, why are people, we came out bruised and all dusty. And mom was like, did you get into a fight? I said, no, these kids were throwing rocks at us, calling us names, calling us traitors, calling us like oil money chasers, calling us weak. We don't want you here. You left this country. Why you're here? You're here to vacation and spend the oil money that you got from Saudi Arabia. So these are children. These are 10, 11, 12-year-old kids that they can talk that way, and they believe it to bully others, knowing that, what we're saying is going to matter. It's going to be impactful. So like I said, it was a ball of emotions. So when I went to my mom, told her, she goes, go take a shower. That's all she said. And I said, Mom, is it true? She goes, don't worry about them. Those are kids. Just ignore them. Go take a shower. You're going to feel better. And then she made me food, and I sat down, ate food, and watched TV. So that just one of the so many examples that if this was my kid, I would sat them down and said, okay, you need to look at the other side of the coin, right? You need to look at, we pulled you out of here for a better future, for better opportunity. You need to appreciate that. We are privileged. But other people, unfortunately, don't have an access to resources or means to leave the country. Maybe they didn't have the money to leave, or they're not educated enough that Saudi Arabia will grant them a visa or grant them an employment contract because they could be just farmers, or they own their own store, or, just Saudi Arabia didn't have use for them, But no, that was not discussed. They were not spoken about, because I think now, being an adult, I think my mom was offended by that. So for her, if she sat down with me and broke it down, I would have discovered that she did feel guilty leaving. Right? Because you still get that pull. When you're in the new world, even just from Jordan, Saudi is not, you just travel south. It's like an hour. But just pulling yourself from your home world to Saudi Arabia, very different culture, very different environment. For her, she might have had to confine in me some of her emotions and feelings about her leaving her country. And she didn't want that. She just maybe she was ashamed. Maybe she did believe it was a weakness, but you had to do what you needed to do to give your family a better life, right?
Maybe
or a better opportunity. Exactly, right.
Maybe
despite the circumstances.
Strong. She didn't want to reveal that to you, that she was feeling emotions.
Exactly. Or she didn't want
she considered weak.
Exactly.
Although I wouldn't consider weak. Maybe you wouldn't consider weak. But
no, I wouldn't. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, Mom, you feel the same way. Like,
I'm normal.
Exactly. Help me understand that there's a reason why we're there. Because, when you're a kid, sometimes you wonder, it's like, I wonder why my parents made that decision. I wonder why my parents did what they had to do. You're just curious, right? But also, our culture puts you in your place. You're a child. You should not be asking those questions. Mm-hmm. You're a child. Yeah. This is none of your business. You're a child. Mm-hmm. You need to be polite and have respect to your adult. And questioning, you are saying to them, I don't trust you, or I am doubting your decisions. And as a parent, that's a big no-no. Yeah. So moving on, from your professional opinion, can we, share with our audience the building a relationship with anxiety, right? Or healthy relationship with anxiety. What does that look like?
There's so many people out there who study anxiety and who have so many different ideas in different ways. I just want to say, this is my way. As a marriage and family therapist in Alabama, I've studied anxiety. And so this is my way of my approach to this. And so for me, if I'm looking at anxiety as a natural experience, a reaction to something that feels like a threat, that creates a different sort of relationship to anxiety than one where I'm trying to get rid of it. It's a different relationship than one where I'm trying to suppress it and stop it from happening. If you have a toddler or a pet or something and you take it outside your door and you shut it and you lock it, that toddler, that dog, cat, whatever, is going to meow and bark and scratch and cry and bang at the door until it can be let in. And anxiety happens like that. And that if you try to push it away and get rid of it, sometimes it comes back even harder and louder and more powerful than before. So if you kind of open that door, allow the toddler to roam in and to roam out, or the cat or the dog to roam in, it will leave and it will come back, and it will leave and it will come back. Or it has a possibility of this. And anxiety is very similar. And so I like to challenge people to look at it like that and to think, if this is a natural thing that happens to me in my body, our bodies are kind of act as a thermostat. I get this from one of my favorite therapists out there. His name is Douglas Flemons. He writes about this, but it can kind of act like a thermostat, and that when you turn up the thermostat to a certain temperature, the temperature in the room will reach a certain threshold. It will heat up to a certain threshold, and then it will kick in the system to cool the space down until it reaches another threshold, and then the system turns off. And then once it reaches a certain threshold, and our bodies kind of act the same way. And if we kind of feel these physical sensations of anxiety that happen to us and know this is a message, it's telling me something does not feel right within me, something in my environment does not feel right, something is going on, I need to change. I know that at some point that uncomfortable physical sensation will eventually reach its threshold and start to decrease. We can kind of work with anxiety in a different sort of way. So for a lot of people, things like distraction, taking a walk, kind of running away from the anxiety can be helpful for them. I like to challenge people to almost get closer to it. And it can be it could be scary because people are like, oh my God, no, I don't want to feel it. I'm going to start to panic. And I challenge to say, yeah, you will feel your heart racing. That's what it does. You will feel, your tensing of your muscles and everything. That's what should happen. And if you can kind of experience that, saying, this is what anxiety feels like. And eventually I will get to the threshold where it does you will notice that it will start to change in your body. And you can the more that you get used to this, the quicker the threshold will get there and the quicker the cooling will happen. So I think coping skills can look different for everybody and how to deal with anxiety. But I wonder what it might be like for people out there listening who can kind of take this in and try that sort of idea out for themselves. What do you think when I say that?
I love it. I think the way I would summarize what you just said is to have options. You know, when you said open the door, let them come in and out. When you're going through an anxiety or panicky, it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like there's something coming at me and I'm trying to get ready to do the fight or run away from it. Those are the options. Either fight it, like you said, really have a relationship with it, recognize it, and, get close to it. And that's what I like to do because I'm very, very task oriented, very data and very analytical. For me, as a dentist for 27 years, my job is to diagnose and repair. Diagnose, restore, and repair. Diagnose, restore, and repair to get you healthy. For me, it's unhealthy just to poo-poo a problem because it's gonna boil over. It's coming back. It's not going away, right? So when I decided to, but also part of me as a personality coming from my home world, that is not an option. You know what I'm saying? You ignore it, it will go away. You ignore it, go away because that's what I was told. It's a muscle, right? It's a muscle memory from what my parents have taught me.
Like
and I didn't know. Exactly. I did not know better. I was like, I might get hurt if I get close to anxiety trying to figure out exactly what's going on. They taught me, ignore it, it will go away. But it's not going away. So you end up being trapped. You're in limbo. It's like, okay, I am applying what I was taught, but I'm not getting the results that I'm looking for. So what I love about what you said is give yourself options. And that's exactly what I wanted from my mom when I was like, I don't want to go to their birthday party. I'm not feeling good. Could be, it was like the time of the month. That could have been it. I was very emotional, but that's a whole different episode. We're not going to talk about menstrual cycle or even female cycle. Oh my God, in my family, my culture. But, they did, all I wanted at that moment is like, okay, what's going on? Give me the option to say, I don't want to talk about it, or yes, I really want to talk about it. Or give me the option to say that, I understand you're not feeling well, but trust me, it will be a really good distraction. And let's go for like 15 minutes. If you still feel the same way, we would leave. Just give me that option. But there was no option. It's either black and white. And I agree with you, depending on your personality, you are going to decide what kind of relationship you want to have with anxiety. Like I always say it, and I teach my team that humans are divided into the 4 personalities: task-oriented, people-oriented, extroverted, introverted. So if you are task-oriented, extroverted kind of a person, you're just going to go in head first. You're just going to tackle that, right? If you are introverted, task oriented, you're going to just take your time, research it, do the data, understand it so you can deal with it. But if you are extroverted, people-oriented, you're just winging it. You're very spontaneous. I'm just going to go see a therapist. I need a pill. Just, very spontaneous. But 55% of the human race belong to the category of introverted, people-oriented. And that group of people, they want steadiness. They don't want change. Don't rock the boat. Everything is fine. Just very, very quiet, ignoring things. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to cause any waves. And let's move on. That's 55% of the human population, according to the DISC personality style model. So if 55% of humans don't want to rock the boat and they're going to try to ignore it and hate confrontation, they don't like change, either minimal change or no change at all, then those were, my parents probably were part of that as far as anxiety is concerned. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, change is very scary. Change is scary for all of us. I think that there's probably a level of how comfortable people are with tolerating the unknown in change. Some people find that exciting. Some people find that like something that they actually seek. While some people, like you were describing, maybe are scared, uncomfortable with change. I mean, change is uncomfortable.
Well, anxiety is the fear of the unknown. So if you're dealing something that you know nothing about and you're fearing to be judged, to be rejected, to be criticized, that will make you the unknown is so huge. So anxiety level is really high. Being in the know, researching it or understanding it, or even when your child says, I don't feel good, I'm nervous or whatever, sitting down with that child just for 5 minutes and breaking it down for that child or to that child, then the child, it becomes in the know right?
Yeah.
The anxiety. So the unknown have shrunk, or you reduce the unknown. It's like, okay, now we identify it. We know about it. Then let's either deal with it or we can deal with it later. So giving the options, being in the know, understanding what's going on, to me, that's a relationship I built with anxiety. And I'm not sure if I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way or a healthy way, unhealthy way.
Well, when I heard you tell that story in the beginning, or a moment ago, I was thinking because one of the things you said was, I think something along the lines of like, I didn't need answers or something like this, that you even heard just saying, let's just giving you time. I thought, oh, you wanted connection. You wanted just someone to pay attention and to see you and to connect with you, and even just sitting down with you and maybe even holding your hand, or even in silence giving you a hug, kind of would signal something like, I know this experience, it'll be okay. And so, like you said, like options that might work for you. And like, sometimes it's not so much like even just like, here's a coping skill to try. It could just be this is normal and it's okay. And I'm here, and we can go from there to figure out what might work. One thing you said was the fear of the unknown. And it made me think of this phrase, and at this time it's not coming to me, but I'm sure it will in a moment. It's the challenge, to challenge yourself with, you said it's fear of the unknown. None of us can read the future, right? We can look at all the options. We can name 1,000 different things, and still there might be something that happens that we could not have predicted. And so I think that the challenge really would be, or the question is, can we act even with uncertainty? Which we can, and we do.
Well, I think it depends on your personality, because the unknown, change is unknown, like you said. So every day, every hour on the hour, every single day, there's change. And God knows there's change around us, even especially these days. The whole world is changing. So change is the unknown. Like, where am I going? What am I doing? How we're doing it.
What's going to happen next?
What's going to happen next? Am I taking the right decision? Why am I doing it? Am I doing it for myself? So there's so many different varieties. Yes. So it really depends on your personality. Change is going to happen because we evolve as human. Aging is change, right?
Change
so
is
we're
inevitable.
Evolving as human beings, right? Mentally, emotionally, and we're it's going faster than I ever experienced in my life. So to keep up with that social media, Google, data, Game Thrown, AI now is taking over. It's like, okay, I don't know what to trust. I don't know what to believe. Making that decision, even mental decision or intellectual decision or opinion decisions, we are doing it whether you like it or not, every hour, probably every minute of our day. So that's a lot of change. So if your personality, we know as humans, change is imminent, right? It has to, because you're evolving, right? And you're moving through time. But the difference is, do you want control change? Do you want calculated change? Do you want spontaneous change? Or you want minimal change? So going back to your comment with my mom, she actually realized my daughter is changing. This is something new I never had to deal with. And who knows, maybe inside of her, she didn't know how to deal with it. Or maybe, my mom was very introverted, very task oriented. She wanted either control change or calculated change. Spontaneous change or no change, it's not acceptable. So when I came to her all of a sudden and dropped that kind of bomb on her, saying that I'm not going to go, everybody's out of the door. It's like, I can't go. I panicked. It's just, I can't go. I just don't feel good. For my mom, it's not calculated change and it's not control change, So for her, it's like, oh, okay, I don't know what to do with it. The only way she knew how to tell me, let's go, basically. It's control. I got to control my daughter. This is all calculated. We've been planning for this. She's going to go because she's my daughter. And me as a parent, I control my daughter. You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, you know what? Like you said, give me an option. I know you're not feeling good, Slava, but this is not the time for it. Let's go. I promise you, if you don't like in 15. And she started doing that, believe it or not, when I got into high school. Because
how did that change things for you?
I don't know. I think she got older, because my mom kept having kids and she was 41, maybe because of menopause too, because after her last child, she started the menopause process. When I was in high school, I think she started to see me as an equal. One day I'm going to be the matriarch of the family. And whether I proved myself, who knows, in two different ways. I don't know how she looked at things. But from my perspective, things have shifted a little bit. It's almost like Slava is getting, she's an adult. I should give her some respect and room. So I'm very introverted. I used to be antisocial. I wanted just to be home because I don't like uncalculated change. So if somebody invites me, I had to go to a birthday party to one of my friends. My mom's like, you really should go. You need a break. It's like, no, I got so much to study. My mom's like, you got to go change. You have to learn how to build social skills, but being home, it's not going to prep you for the real world or for life. So I was like, Mom, she goes, listen, and that's when she gave me the option. I think that's where I remember from. I said, promise me to go, but I will promise you in return that within the hour, if you just feel uncomfortable or you had enough, I get it, give me a call. I'm going to send you the car, right? And then you can come home. But I stayed there the whole time until the cake was cut and the dinner was there, but going in that birthday party, I had the option and that calmed my anxiety down. I was like, I have an option to leave. I have out. I didn't feel trapped, nor I felt rejected that, okay, my emotions don't matter. You know what I'm saying? So that helped.
And in that moment, she was also acknowledging that you have feelings that might be uncomfortable enough for you to want to leave. And I don't know if that was the first time she expressed it, or recognized that, but that was a moment where she did, in a way.
Yeah, she did. And I felt like, I'm kind of being elevated or promoted, that I do matter. I'm not a kid anymore, number one. I was treated like an adult. I almost got treated like an equal. She got me, I wasn't rejected. I wasn't judged. I wasn't criticized. So that brought my anxiety down, because when you get rejected, you feel you are stuck in the panic, right? It's like, why am I getting rejected? And you just beating yourself up. What's wrong with me? And you start analyzing yourself and the anxiety gets worse. But at that moment, I was like, okay, that maybe she's learning, but like they said, your kids teach parents too how to deal with things, and I think because maybe the time, things were changing, and maybe she talked to her friends or she talked to her sister, who knows. That until this day, I have no idea where it was. So it could be hormonal, like I said, it could be emotional, but where and when the switch happened, all I know that I experienced the effect of that change, which was good. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's such a cool story.
Fascinating. All right. So my last question to you is that what would be your advice to families that feel a family, not actually a family member that's going through anxiety, to the family that feel so uncomfortable addressing anxiety? What is the advice to them? And because parents, they get a lot of, not comments or stress, like, you're not dealing with this correctly. How could you do this to your child? So what's your advice to parents, especially immigrant parents, that they don't know better? Do they just release their child and say, seek professional help if you can't deal with it? Or what are the other skills that can actually use to keep the relationship with their child? Because the last thing you want is for the child to give up on their parents and you have no relationship. You know what I'm saying? I think that might be one of the reasons my mom's like, okay, if I don't really kind of be kind about it, she might just leave, because I was going to the United States. She knew I was going to the United States for college. She might leave and never come back. And they didn't want to lose that relationship. So what would be your advice to immigrant, especially Arab, conservative parents in the United States dealing with a child that has anxiety?
I wonder if parents who are wanting to do something different with their child who has anxiety, they're probably already in the mental space where they care and where they want something to change. And so I imagine, some of the things we've talked about in this episode is connection, giving options, trying something new, accepting change as inevitable. And I think those are all great ways to kind of use and take advantage of. You know, if something's not working right now, if you were to make some sort of address it in a different sort of way, whether that means taking them to a mental health professional or trying a different sort of coping skill, like having a conversation about what they're experiencing, or taking a walk outside, or maybe leaning into spirituality if that's a change in how you might approach something, or changing things up. And of course, a mental health professional can help you. And if parents are uncomfortable with the idea of medicine, they can always say, let's try other things before the medicine with their child. And there's just so many possibilities, but I imagine that these parents coming in might already be kind of receptive to new ideas.
Yeah, and one of I think the lack of resources internally with families as immigrant, because when you pull yourself out of big family structure in your home world and you're coming to the United States, you have the parents and the kids. Back home, you know, if I'm acting up or I'm like, oh, I'm done with you, Slava. Go to your grandmother's house. Go. She used to ship us to my aunt's house, her sister's house. Yeah. Go play with your cousins. But here, there is the element of isolation too. That you cannot rely on the family. And that's why a lot of immigrants start pulling their families from the home world. Come over to America. You know, before you know it, you have the uncle and the aunts and the grandparents, because you need that structure and you need that help. It's like free babysitting, basically. So if the kid is acting up, ship him to his grandmother or for a couple of days, or if to your aunt, go to play with your cousins. Or, you know, we used to go, my mom used to send us either spend the weekend with her sister, or my cousin who's acting up, come spend the weekend with us, just to change scenery or have a better influence. Like maybe the older sibling or the older cousins can actually influence them. But that becomes a challenge, because that's what we call isolation. In the immigration world, we're so isolated, and you don't want to trust a stranger. It stems from also the whole tribal connection. I can't have a stranger look after my child. I wish my family was here because I trust it. Because you can leave us for a couple of days and you don't worry about it. We're fed, we're cleaned, we're having fun and trust them. Exactly. And you know that going into a family member's house, they're not going to be influenced with outside thoughts, you know what I'm saying? Or you know, it's safe, basically. Yes. You're not going to come back with, I want this, I want that, I don't want my bed, I want to change my bedroom. There's none of that, because you are within the family, that cocoon family, and the whole family operates for the greater good of the coalition, I call it, or the tribe.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because that's so true, is that like there's this fear of either like losing something within your family, losing the culture, losing the traditions, losing the way we do life, and also like the gaining of a new way of life that is inevitable. I mean, you're kind of like living within this world of the family that's protected, and almost like a paused moment in history of Jordan or Saudi Arabia, you know, in wherever you're at in the States, or wherever. But then also you're getting the experience in the world that you're actually in, the city and the town that you're actually in, that is very opposite. And then that can be left you kind of confused. And those coping skills that they might use back home don't work now, because you've got conflicting ways of being.
Right. The belief system is different. Your values are different. So you need to reassess the value. What served you now is not serving. It's not going to serve you later. What served you before, it's not serving anymore. I went through that process, you know, myself, but I think I would love to do a whole episode about how reassessing your family value. And then, because there's such a huge baggage of emotions when that happens, you know, you feel the betrayal, letting go. These are my roots. That's all I know. How dare I change what my ancestors have taught me? But you have to be also selfish on the other side, that you need to serve yourself, because that your life does matter. It's all about
opposite of what is the
Exactly.
communal culture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very delicate balance between the new and the old, and the home and in the new world, and that's how we immigrants end up with that duality of personality. You know, the multicultural competency that we can do this and that. We are this and that, not this one or that. And some of us, we do go through the challenge. Like either I don't want that. I just want one personality, one culture, and that's really hard because again, with it, like I said, comes the feeling of betrayal, the feeling of desertment. You know, I'm deserting my ancestry. You know, and the guilt. My God, the guilt is huge. But thank you so much for coming, and I hope we do another one about that. I would love to dig deep into that duality of personality, and we can do some research and introduce some data. But we have reached the end of our hour. As a reminder, these episodes are uploaded weekly on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube by the Mindset Mastery Moments. And this episode especially is part of our special edition, Discovering Palestinian Intellects. So if you have joined this, please like, share, and hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss any episode, and it's free. This community is sponsored by humanity and supported by everyday people stories. So please find us, join us, support us, and as always, be kind. Thank you for watching and listening. Hope to see you next time. This is Slava, the Jordanian.